Question in halacha about sharing Torah with your back to this is an aron. So there's a question in general about standing with your back to an aron when sharing Torah. It's particularly strange to stand there with your back to what's beyond the aron as well. But I guess the heter that allows a person to ever do that is because the most important people to face when sharing Torah are the people who we're learning together with. So I want to just by way of Hakar Satov, I want to say thank you for this opportunity. It's the first time I'm ever speaking in this Beis Medrash, and I feel very privileged to do so. And I want to begin just by thinking about three words together in the Torah, which at first glance are impossible to understand. It's really just it's a bracha and a tefillah for all of us together. It's the moment when Moshe Rabbeinu is negotiating with the Kadosh Baruch Hu about whether or not he is fit to be a shliach to take Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, to take the Jews out of Egypt. Moshe in his humility says, I'm just not your guy. I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. And he's standing there by that burning bush, and Hashem says, you have to do it. This is your job. You know, when every one of our neshamos, when our souls came down to this world, we had the same conversation. The Zohar Kadosh says, that your neshama was not interested in coming down to this world. On a certain level, why would it? The neshama was in some supernal world, sitting beneath the Kisei HaKavod, the throne of glory of Hashem. Everything was perfect. And Hashem says, I'm sending you on a mission down to this world. And the Zohar describes the fight that the kicking and screaming, don't send me down to that dark and scary and confusing world. I'm not going to do a good job. Too many challenges, too much temptation. It's not realistic. And Hashem picked each and every one of us, and you have to think about it in a very personal way. Hashem picked each and every one of us and said, this is your job, this is your shlichus. Don't tell me you're not worthy. Don't tell me someone else would be better. I'm picking you for this job. So Hashem says to Moshe, you have to go to Bnei Yisrael and tell the Jewish people, I'm here to take you out of Mitzrayim. Back and forth, back and forth. In the Chumash it's back and forth. In the Medrash it took place over days. Finally Moshe says to Hashem, if I have to do this, so at least tell me, how should I present you? I'm like the shadchan, I'm the matchmaker here between the Jewish people and Hashem. So tell me about yourself, Hashem. How should I introduce you? And Hashem says three words, and I want to think together about these three words, try to internalize them and really bless ourselves with these three words. Hashem says three words, Shemos Perek Gimel, Pasuk Yud Daled, chapter 3, verse 14. Eke asher eke. Eheya asher eheya. I will be what I will be. God, what's your name? And Hashem says, I will be what I will be. I will be what I will. It's a strange way to introduce yourself. Right? You walk over to someone, hi, shalom aleichem, I'm Moshe Tzvi Weinberg, nice to meet you. What's your name? I am who I am. Okay. Do you have another name, more personal name that you go by? I'll be who I will be. It's a very strange way to introduce oneself. And yet Hashem says, this is the name that's going to take you out of Mitzrayim. This is the introduction of who God is in reconnecting Hashem to His people. Not that we were ever apart, but there was a perception that we had grown apart. I want to share with you the explanation. A lot has been written about these three words. Eheya asher eheya. It's a name of God, Aleph and Hey and Yud and Hey. The Nitziv of Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, the Rosh Yeshiva of the Volozhin Yeshiva. He says an incredible thing about these words. Eheya asher eheya. Hashem was saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, you want me to present myself to you in some neatly packaged way, a clear way, a simple way, just like sum it all up. Tell me what it is. Tell me your name. A person's name carries the essence of our soul. It's really important to think about your name, your Jewish name, and to understand, what does it mean? How does that align with my strengths, my weaknesses, my mission? The Baal Shem Tov, the Holy Baal Shem Tov said that if you look at the word neshama, nun, shin, mem, and hey, which means your soul, the middle letters are Shem. Your name is the inner dimension, the inner essence of your soul. So Hashem says, my name is Eheyeh Asher Eheyeh, Eke Asher Eke. The Netziv says, you know what that means? It means, Moshe Rabbeinu, I can't tell you exactly who I am. You're God, you can tell me anything. Hashem says, no, you have to understand. There's a partnership here, and I can't tell you who I am because the way the Netziv translates it, I will be what you make me out to be. Chavre, how do we view HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How do we understand Hashem? How do we understand receiving the Torah? The greatest privilege of all time? A system to live your best life? Another form of slavery? Being controlled no longer by power, but now we're being controlled by a new master called God? Is Shabbos the greatest gift? Like the Gemara says, Hashem says, Moshe Rabbeinu, go tell the Jewish people, I have a matana tova, I have a good gift to give to the Jewish people. If Hashem says it's a good gift, we've all received gifts at some point in our life where someone was really excited to give you that new sweater or whatever, and you're like, okay, they were much more excited about it than you are. Hashem doesn't like buy the wrong birthday present. Hashem says, I have a good gift, it's called Shabbos. For some people, Shabbos is the biggest gift in the world, and that's why the messianic vision is Yom Shekulo Shabbos, a day that is forever Shabbos, stuck in Shabbos forever. For a person who understands what Shabbos is, that's the biggest gift in the world. For a person who doesn't, Shabbos feels stifling. Shabbos feels controlling. Shabbos feels limiting. Can't do this, and you can't. God really cares if I take, but I'm not allowed to separate the part that I don't like I have a bowl of jelly beans, I take out the colors I don't like, so I'm destroying the whole universe. God doesn't have bigger things to worry about. Eheyeh Asher Eheyeh, the Netziv says, Moshe Rabbeinu, tell Bnei Yisrael, they're going to have to choose what this is going to be. They have to decide what they want this relationship to be. And I really feel, that those three words by which Hashem began the redemption process is every second of our life. You open your siddur to daven, or you don't. You make a choice. Do I want to daven? Do I want to talk to Hashem? And let's say I do choose to open this siddur. Am I really talking to Hashem? Am I asking for something real? Am I just checking the box because that's what Jews are supposed to do at some point in the afternoon, daven mincha? Am I communicating with the creator of the world? Something that angels wait in eternity to have the opportunity to do once, and I can do whenever I want? Eheyeh Asher Eheyeh. Is Gemara boring, or is Gemara the most exciting adventure? That's our choice. Hashem says, I can't tell you what it is. You have to decide what it means to you. And every single choice that we make in our life is a little bit that. Hashem's saying, I'm ready to show up. I'm here. Would you like to learn with me? Would you like to talk with me? Would you like to experience with me? Hashem says, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. The Kedushas Levi, Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, quotes in a number of places an insight into the words of David HaMelech. David HaMelech says, we know the words well from Tehillim, Hashem Tzilcha. Hashem Tzilcha means Hashem is your protector. Hashem is your shade. Hashem watches over you. But Hashem Tzilcha also means Hashem is your shadow. And just like your shadow mimics what you do. It follows your lead. Hashem Tzilcha, Hashem says, I want to follow your lead. You tell me how you want this relationship to be. Do you want it to be filled with love? Do you see me as some tyrant who's trying to control your life? So I want to give us a bracha, and I'm totally blown away by the chazara that's happening here. You can't keep gobbling up more and more and more pages of Gemara if you're not falling in love with it. If you're not choosing to understand what a delight it is, what a privilege it is to learn Hashem's Torah. But I just want to give us all a bracha that we should be able to live a life where we take Hashem's hand, Hashem's outstretched hand, which says, come, let's go talk together. Let's go learn together. Let's study together. I give us a bracha that we should have the confidence with the humility to take that offer seriously. And when Hashem says, are you in? Hashem tzilcha, Hashem says, I'm waiting for you to make the first move. We say, Rabbono Sholem, we're coming with you. We're interested. We're excited to be a part of this. We want to be your partners in redeeming ourselves. If we were to ask ourselves, what sugya are we in right now? What sugya are we in right now? So, the Baal Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, used to say, it's very important for a Jew to live with the times, to live with the Parsha, to read the Torah as talking to us right now. So what is the Torah saying to us right now? We're in the sugya of Shemos, Ve'era, Bo, B'Shalach. We're in the sugya of Yetzias Mitzrayim. We're in the sugya of getting out of Mitzrayim. We only have a couple of minutes together. There's not so much time. There's a lot of layers to that experience of leaving Mitzrayim. What's supposed to happen when I pick up a Chumash and I read this week's Parsha? And I meet Jews who are leaving Mitzrayim. What does that mean for me? I'm sitting here in a beautiful Beis Medrash. You guys are living and learning and breathing the air of the headquarters of the universe. You're not in Mitzrayim. You're not in Mitzrayim right now. You're in Gan Eden right now. You're in the most beautiful place in the world right now. What's the Yetzias Mitzrayim on a personal level that we can try to feel when we're studying these psukim? And the answer, I think, there's many layers to it, and I wish we had a little more time, but there's to say just one dimension of it, as it applies to B'nai Yeshiva, people learning in Yeshiva. The Yetzias Mitzrayim that we're trying to experience here as B'nai Yeshiva is trying to figure out, how do I have that next spiritual breakthrough? Because Mitzrayim means boundaries and borders. Where am I stuck? So some of us maybe are stuck on learning Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, Hey. We're just learning the letters. Some of us are stuck, we don't know the rules of Judaism. Some of us are stuck, I'm starting to learn Gemara, but every line is impossibly difficult and I'm just trying to crack the code. Some of us are stuck that I have a temper problem and I want to be less angry. Or I want to believe that I can live a life of holiness and guard my eyes to look at the right things. Everyone's stuck in something, whether it's spiritual or emotional, and it's all the same package. Physically, spiritually, emotionally, we're all trapped within something. We're all a little bit stuck. And as we read these parshios, as we encounter B'nai Yisrael leaving Mitzrayim, we have to ask ourselves, how do I have that breakthrough? Where am I stuck? And how do I free myself from that? So I want to learn together, just for a couple of minutes, a Medrash in Shir HaShirim, which again, to me, speaks to the essence of Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. I will be what you make it out to be. Let's get to know our neshamas a little bit. Let's get to know ourselves a little bit deeper. Now I imagine and I hope that if I were to ask everyone in this room, how well do you know yourself? Or do you know yourself? Don't raise your hand, but by a show of hands, how well do you know yourself? I hope on a certain level that everyone's hand would go up and no hands would go up. Because it would be very sad if we didn't know ourselves at all. That would be a huge tragedy. At the same time, I'm 43 years old. Do I know myself? I'm starting to, I hope I can sheepishly raise my hand a little bit. I'm starting to figure myself out a little bit. But I also know that there's a lifetime of growth and I've barely begun to know myself. I'm barely using my potential. And I have to figure out what it is. What's my mission? What's my calling in this world? Who am I? What makes me me? That's the question of Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. What do you want to do? Hashem says to us, as part of Geula, as part of redemption. So listen to this Medrash in Shir HaShirim. It's Chazal's explanation in the 6th parak of Shir HaShirim on the words Lo Yadati Nafshi. I didn't know my soul. I hadn't met myself. The Medrash says, Mashal of a Bas Malachim, a parable of a princess who was kidnapped from the palace. Unfortunately, that's not just a mashal in our world right now. And I hope that our learning and our davening and our trying to internalize this message to bring a Yeshua, a Yetzias Mitzrayim to those Jews who are literally held in captivity right now. It's not a mashal, it's our life, it's what's happening. Mashal Lebas Malachim, the story of a princess who was taken from the palace. A Jewish girl, taken from Eretz, taken. Picture this little girl, the daughter of the king, kidnapped. And no one knows what happened to her. Medrash says no one knows where she is. And they're searching, and the police and the private investigators, and everyone is where the army, everyone's searching, everyone's trying to figure it out. And a week goes by, a month goes by. We can't even begin to imagine the anxiety and the fears and the impossible weightiness of that for a second. I know that when I'm like out with my kids and our youngest like disappears for like a second, like around the corner in the supermarket, and I just don't see my son for like a minute, and I'm bugging out. This girl's gone. A day, a week, a month, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years go by. This little girl's missing. The king tries his best to continue to live his life, to run the kingdom, to do what he has to do, put one foot in front of the other. All of a sudden, one day he's traveling. Picture this king, he's got a big stretch limousine surrounded by black SUVs, the royal entourage, he's driving on the highway, big security personnel. And the king is kind of mindlessly looking out the window, and all of a sudden he sees a young lady, a young woman, the age of probably many of you, off in the distance. And he screams to the driver, he screams, stop the car. The driver slams on the brakes. And he sees the king is like, he's shaking. Oh, is everything okay? What's going on? He turns to his bodyguard, his security guard, and he points out into the distance. He says, that girl down the hill over there. He's pointing from the main road, he's looking all the way down in the field. That girl over there, I need to speak to her. So the bodyguard gets out, big guy, marches down the hill, goes over to this girl. Come with me. Am I in trouble? Come with me. Marches her back up the hill. She's standing alongside this magnificent vehicle like nothing she's ever seen before. The window opens. She's face to face with the king. Face to face with the king. And he's just like looking at her in disbelief, like shaking his head in disbelief. I can't believe it. He says to her, he says, do you know who I am? She says, you're the king. Of course I know who you are. You're the king. And he says with a trembling voice, he says, and do you know who you are? And she says, I'm not sure how to answer. I'm not sure what you're asking. What are you asking? He says, do you know who you are? She's like embarrassed to look him in the face. She's face to face with the king. She says, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm really not sure what you're asking. So he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a picture. And he holds up the picture. He says, do you know who this is? And she says, of course, that's the queen. He says, I want you to take this picture in your hand and I want you to look at it very carefully and tell me what you see. She's so confused what's going on. She takes the picture in her hand and she's holding it with her trembling hands and she's looking at it and she's looking at it. He says, tell me what you see. After a couple of seconds, she starts to like laugh awkwardly, like you can tell she's a little uncomfortable. He says, "What? Good. What is it? What's up? What do you?" She says, "No, it's strange. It's weird. I don't want to say." He says, "I command you, by order of the king, I command you, tell me what you see." She says, "It sounds so strange to say this, and I hope I'm not being disrespectful, but I almost feel like I kind of look like the queen. I'm like a young version of the queen. I see the resemblance. Like." I never noticed that before. I know it's weird to say. It's strange to say. And the king, with tears in his eyes, says, it's not strange at all to say, that's your mom. That's your mother. And I'm your father. And you're a princess. And she's like, hold on a second. What do you mean I'm a princess? And he starts pulling up articles on his phone. He's Google searching, the lost princess and showing articles about how she was kidnapped 16, 17, 18 years ago from the palace as a young little girl. And how she was never found and no one knew what ever happened to her. And he says, I saw you off in the distance. I saw you out in the field. Dude, I could tell from your clothing, you're living like a homeless person on the street. You don't look like you've had anything normal to eat. And I saw you picking food out of a garbage can in the distance. You don't have to live like that. The whole palace is yours. And he opens the door and she starts to climb in. And the king, as he's inviting his daughter in to take her back to the palace, sees a couple of other people all of a sudden poking their heads out. Her friends start like poking their heads out from behind the bushes when they saw, the security guard come, everyone's scattered. And they say, well, what's going on over here? She says, I just found out I'm a princess. I'm going back to the palace. And they said, you're a princess? With such disbelief. You're a princess? We never knew. Our friend, our chavra, like, we've been hanging out. You're a princess? We never knew. That's crazy. And she says, you think you're surprised? You think you're overwhelmed by that knowledge? How do you think I feel that my whole life I never knew who I was. Chazal say that's what it means in Shir Hashirim, Perek Vav, Pasuk Yud Beis, Lo yadati nafshi. I didn't know myself. The Medrash concludes the Jewish people were slaves in Mitzrayim. And Chaver, the narrative in Mitzrayim was not all that different than you can get on CNN.com. That somehow we're the bad guys. That somehow we're some low nation, that we're the troublemakers, and if we would just go away, then the world would finally have peace. It's the opposite of the truth. And Hashem came to Mitzrayim to prove it. Because we were also drinking the Kool-Aid. We had also bought into the narrative. We were convinced that we're so fortunate to be slaves for such a great nation like Mitzrayim. Until Hashem shows up and Hashem says, actually, you're the Am HaNivcha, you're the chosen people. And I'm going to take you to give you the greatest gift that was ever given to humanity, called the Torah Kedosha. We're going to Har Sinai, and then we're going on from there to Eretz Yisrael. And as we're leaving Mitzrayim, the Mitzrayim, our old friends, poke their heads out and they say, we can't believe it. We thought you were the lowest of the low. You're the chosen people. You're God's children. And we say to Mitzrayim as they're drowning in the waters of the Yam Suf behind us as we wave goodbye, we say, you think you're shocked? How do you think we feel? How many years have we gone without knowing who we are? Lo yadati nafshi. I didn't even know who I am. I didn't understand what my mission was in this world. I didn't notice that Hashem was saying, I'm here, ehaya asher ehaya. I'm so ready to go. Whether it means sitting down to learn or to talk or to bring the Geula Shlema, Hashem says, I'm ready to go. I just need to know that I have a partner in this. Are you interested? I will be what you make of me. If you're excited about it, I'm very excited about it, says Hashem. So just to wrap up, because we only have 2 more minutes, I want to tell you a story that I heard, or that I read, from Rabbi Shmuel Brazil. Shmuel Brazil is a Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. He's a great composer of Nigunim, beautiful musician, many songs, probably songs many of you know that you don't even realize are from Rabbi Brazil. So he was traveling one time, he writes in his Sefer, one of his Svarim, he was traveling one time, and he found himself in Montreal. He's in a base medrash in Montreal, a shul in Montreal, and a fellow comes over to him and he introduces himself. I'm so-and-so's grandfather. Wow, you're Naphtali's grandfather. Naphtali was in Yeshiva at the time. Brazil gives him, a nachas note. He's doing so beautifully. He's learning beautifully, and his character is mitos, and he's the real deal. Your grandson's a beautiful, beautiful Ben Torah. Rabbi Brazil says to him, tell me about yourself. This older gentleman, tell me about yourself. He says, who are you? What's your name? What do you do? So the fellow gets all excited. His big smile on his face. He reaches into his pocket. He pulls out a piece of paper. And he unfolds this piece of paper very lovingly. And he shows Rabbi Brazil his list. 2 columns. A list of his daily responsibilities, commitments that he's made for himself, things that he's working on for himself. A second column, things for the tzibur, things that he's doing on behalf of Klal Yisrael, different ways that he's helping out. He's the gabbai of the shul, and he helps out with this chesed organization, and he's doing Bikur Cholim for this one. Incredible. He's an older gentleman. He could have retired and taken it easy. And he's got all his daily responsibility. I daven at this minyan, and then I learn Daf Yomi, and then I learn Mishnayos, and then I do this, and then incredibly driven person. Right? Brazil's looking this over. He says, this is enough work for 100 people. This is your day. He says, this is my daily list. And at the bottom of the list, right, Brazil notices the bottom line. The bottom line. It says, compose a niggin. Write a song. Write a song. Right, Brazil, again, as I told you, he's a composer. He writes beautiful nigunim. So he turns to this fellow and he says, oh, do you write, you also write? He gets all excited. I write nigunim. Do you also write songs? So the fellow says, no, I've actually never written a song. Okay. Still waiting to say your first chiddush, You must play other people's songs. What do you play? Guitar, piano, violin, flute, saxophone, what instrument do you play? The guy says, I don't play an instrument. I actually don't play an instrument. So he says to him, so why do you, maybe I misread it. It looks like it says, if I'm not reading your handwriting correctly, it looks like it says compose a song. He said, that's right, that is what it says. So he said, so you told me you've never written a song and you don't play an instrument, why does it say compose a song? So So he says to him, with the utmost seriousness, he says, because I believe that Hashem has given me the ability to write an original song. I feel it. I sense that Hashem has given me the ability to write a song. And every time I make myself a list of things that I aspire to do, my goals for the day, for the week, for the month, whatever it is, every time I compose a list, my grocery list, don't forget to buy the apples and the cucumbers and the bananas and pick up a new thing of milk. I write at the bottom, compose a song, because I really feel in my soul, that's something that Hashem expects of me. Rabbi Brazil turned to me and he said, can I ask you, how long have you felt this way? And the person says, for 40 years. For the last 40 years I felt this way. And I haven't brought down my niggin yet, I haven't written my song yet, but I feel that I can and I'm not going to give up on it. And every time I write that list, I write, compose a song. It says in the Torah, Va'ata kisvu lachem es hashira hazos. However, you're learning in Yeshiva, like I said before, in the headquarters of the universe. Not just the physical world, not just planet Earth. All the worlds, and you can ask Rabbi Yid about that, he'll teach you about the worlds. There's a lot of them. A lot of layers. We're living through a time where at the end of the Torah it says, V'anochi haster aster ponai. Hashem says, a time's going to come where I look away and I'm going to pretend that I'm hiding. And it's going to be dark and it's going to be confusing. But you know what the antidote to that is? The Chavetz Chaim says, you know what comes right after that? And now means wherever you are in this moment, wherever you're up to in your spiritual journey, whatever you choose it's going to be, wherever you're up to, Lo yadati nafshi, I didn't know my soul, maybe it was for 5 years or 15 years or 50 years or 75 years, whatever it is. I'm living in that Yetzias Mitzrayim possibility, trying to break through in whatever area that may be. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting for me. Va'at, says the Chavetz Chaim, you know what the response of the Torah is when Hashem pretends to hide from us or it feels like Hashem is hiding? Va'ata kisvu lachem es hashira azos. The time has come for us to what? To write a shira, to write a song for Hashem. It's the song of our lives. It's the song of a beis medrash with a board outside posting in real time another daf of Gemara, another daf of Gemara, another daf of Gemara. That's the most beautiful song in the world. That's the most beautiful song in the world. So I just give us a bracha. We should have the courage and the strength and the humility and the sense of purpose in our life to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent us to this world kicking and screaming, but Hashem doesn't make mistakes. Hashem gave each of us a soul that is tailor-made for you. And Hashem is just waiting for us to redeem ourselves. Karva el nafshi ge'alah, to experience that personal ge'ula. And it's okay for us to admit humbly, lo yadati nafshi, Hashem, I don't fully know myself. And Hashem says, that's okay. Let's figure it out together. I bless us that we should take advantage of that opportunity. That as we're reading about the Yetzias Mitzrayim of the Torah, each and every one of us should experience our own personal Yetzias Mitzrayim, should have all of those breakthroughs that we're looking for in our Avodas Hashem. And Amir Hashem, the Jewish people will go out from this final Galus once and for all with a beautiful new Beis HaMikdash in your backyard. With the Gula Shlema B'mher B'yamin. Amen. Thank you very much.